All right, we are live. Let me go to YouTube. Big Bang Boom, nice. All right. All right, boom. All right, here we go. Three, two, one. Oh, yes, indeed. 31 days until we get our first taste of college football on the field. And a good evening, everybody. Another edition of Summer Ball coming your way here on The Gambler. This time around, folks, we're talking about the group of five. Now, before you roll your eyes, understand that with the 12-team playoff, newly implemented 12-team playoff this season, group of five will be featured. One team will make it. Will there be more? Well, this is the podcast that will tell us exactly that. We got some great brains on all things college football. And just so everybody knows, we will be talking about other pressing matters. I also have a rapid fire to these two gentlemen at the end of this show. All right, to our top right-hand corner, the man goes by the name of Beef because you can't win without beef up front. We got Ryan Coyle. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening, fellas. Last few weekends, I think 3 more weekends down the shore, then 1 recovery week, and then we're in the college football. So we're getting closer and closer. My favorite part of the year of the summer and the shore is winding down, but it's a sweet trade in for football. Just in 4 Saturdays from this Saturday. So looking forward to it.
When you drop that pin, where is that pin going to be located on the first college football Saturday?
So I got Bruce on Friday night. It depends.
Ooh.
Potentially drive down the shore for Saturday. If not, I think I might hit like the city or something. Gotta see how Friday night goes. But that pin will be active on some Barstool.
All right, and on the bottom of our screen, this guy he just got his first 5-star recruit last night. He is on fire in all things college football. We're talking about the man himself, Mr. Mark Henry Jr., host of the Tough Cover Radio Show every Saturday morning on The Gambler from 11 to 1. Mark, how we doing, sir? Now your audio is messed up. What happened to your audio?
We left him back in. We left the 5-star back in UCF. Unfortunately, we took the dream job. We moved on to Notre Dame. We had to do it.
You're out. You're out. Coach Henry Jr. moved on from UCF to Notre Dame and left the 5-star in Central Florida.
What happened though?
OHIO. Oh no. Mark Henry Jr. fell out already. Oh, Lord. All right, so here's the we're going to keep it moving. We'll get Mark up once he gets the Grims in the system figured out here. All right. Ryan, as I said right from the jump, the fact is that things are different this year because 12-team playoff, and that doesn't get any more easier than that. One group of 5 team can be featured in the 12-team playoff this season. Will there be a chance that 2 group of 5 teams make it in your mind?
Probably not. Reading into it a little bit more today, this was, I guess, a little bit of news to me, but I thought it was kind of automatic that the group of 5 team would get the 12 seed. That's not the case. They could even get into the top 4 if they do come in ranked above one of the ACC, SEC, Big 10, or Big 12 teams. That's unlikely to happen. But if they are even outside the top 12 of the rankings, they are still guaranteed. It'll be the highest ranked team still from the selection committee. So there is going to be still some disparity because it's not like college basketball where it's every conference champion gets in. You're going to have the American winner, the CUSA, the Sun Belt, the MAC, and the Mountain West. All their winners will obviously have their resume in a case, but it's still going to come down to a selection committee of who they put in. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch and something that's certainly going to be full of criticism and controversy. But I'd say less than a 2% chance that you get 2 group of 5 teams because it's just going to be hard to leave out, one of the SEC teams, one of the Big Ten teams, see how it goes in the Big 12 or the ACC. But less than a 2% chance, I would say, that 2 group of 5 teams find their way into the playoff.
All right, Mark Henry Jr. back with us. I highly doubt he's going to disagree with that, but I'm going to ask you, Mark, out of the 5 conferences in the group of 5, obviously, give me the top 2 that you have your eye on that you think could produce the number one, the one team that makes the 12-team playoff this year.
Yeah, I feel like the best conference and the conference that's most likely to produce the team to make the playoff is a different conversation, because it seems like the better conference in the group of 5s are going to beat up on each other. So if you look at FPI, they give the Mountain West and the Sun Belt, and of course I'm missing the main one here, the American,
American, yep,
the American Mountain West and the Sun Belt. But if you look at it, I feel like the Conference USA's got the team that has the best chance to make it out of any of these teams. I think, unfortunately, none of us want to root for Liberty to make a run here, but I think Liberty's got the best chance to make a run. If you're looking at these teams, they have a cupcake schedule. It's why they made a New Year's Six Bowl and got creamed by the backups at Oregon last year. And I kind of think the same thing's going to happen again this year. I think the rest of these teams are going to kind of get beat up on. So I'm looking at the Conference USA, but the one stat I saw is ESPN FPI says the Conference USA has a 9% chance, but Liberty has like a 7% chance. So it really is just Liberty when it comes down to it. But I think they have the best chance.
So why is it Liberty in your mind? Returning players, of course, what they've been able to build. Don't get me wrong, but what is the big factor for Liberty? And you're not the only one. I was reading a little bit earlier, obviously getting caught up on some big group of 5 conversations. So Liberty, they were talking about 2 possible big dates: Appalachian State, App State, and then MTSU. But other than that, pretty easy schedule. But are they returning anybody big from last year in your mind?
They're returning the quarterback, Caden Salter. So that's going to be a big deal there. It's Jamie Chadwell. It's his second year there at Liberty. I think he's probably going to keep building it there. And it's really the schedule more than anything else. You look at a couple of these other top teams. You have teams, UTSA. It has the second highest odds, according to ESPN, the FPI, to make the playoffs. I don't get it. They play Texas, and I don't think this is going to be a situation where UTSA plays Texas and it's like, oh, they hung tough. I think Texas is one of those teams that's just way, way better than any of these group of 5 teams, to the point where it's not going to look pretty on a field. That's not going to help their resume. Then you have another one of these top teams playing Oregon that's expected to make the leap there. I don't. Is that Boise playing Oregon?
Yeah, Boise.
Yeah,
Boise also plays Washington State and Oregon State.
Yeah, it's just, these are tough games for these teams to look good in. So you have Liberty. They're going to play a cupcake schedule and probably go 11-1 or 12-0 and look a lot better than these other teams who have to prove it against some of these good teams.
Beef, are you on the Liberty train as well? Just to let everybody know, they're minus 200 to win Conference USA on DraftKings Sportsbook, Western Kentucky plus 450. It's wild because Liberty, our Conference USA back in the day, Cincinnati, ECU, Conference USA used to have some guts to it, man. We're looking at Liberty, Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston, Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, UTEP, and FIU. Really intriguing Conference USA these days.
Yeah, well, so over at DraftKings, as of right now, Liberty is tied with Boise at 4-1 to make the playoff. So they're the 2 teams at the top. As we just touched on with Boise State, that schedule that includes Oregon, Washington State, and Oregon State. I'm expecting to take a step back now that a lot of the players departed from those programs due to moving out of now that they're the Pac-2. I think I also heard they're calling it the Tupac Conference, which I thought was kind of a cool spin on it. But
that is amazing. Wow.
But Liberty, the game of the year in the group of 5, September 28th. I really hope game day goes there, because it ultimately could decide who who goes to the college football playoff from the group of 5. Liberty plays Appalachian State. Appalachian State is the favorite in the Sun Belt, Conference USA, favorite Liberty. Those two teams squaring off. Whoever loses that game, probably, out of the playoff picture. Whoever wins that game has a probably good chance to be favored the rest of the way and run the table and go to the playoffs. So that is going to be an awesome game. Pretty much a season definer for either squad. So that's the one I think definitely to watch, especially for Liberty, because that's their toughest non-conference game. But yeah, the Liberty looks like the favorite now with Salter coming back at quarterback, and Chadwell's a stud. What he did at Coastal Carolina, who was a doormat program in college football, now he's at Liberty, keeping what Hugh Freeze built rolling. He's going to be, especially if they go to the playoff this year, he's going to be out probably at an SEC school within the next year or so. But he's a stud coach, and I'd probably put him up there with the top 15 coaches in college football.
App State is favored to win the Sun Belt on DraftKings Sportsbook at plus 300. Texas State 5-1. Louisiana 6-1. JMU plus 750. South Alabama, and so on and so on. Coastal Carolina 14-1. I'm sure they lost a few players, but didn't they have a heck of a program for a few seasons?
Yeah, well, Chadwell left, and Grayson McCall, the quarterback, he's now at NC State. So
that's right.
The two kind of program pillars there.
All right. I'll go for it, Mark. What do you got?
You mentioned App State. I think they're right in the conversation for most likely teams to make the playoff. You've got Joey Aguilar coming back to play quarterback. The one thing here, it's like, feels like in a couple of years past, we had more group of 5 quarterbacks that felt like they really had these careers where they had multiple 4,000-yard passing seasons. I was looking at who the best returning quarterbacks were in the group of 5. Problem is now they transfer out. A lot of those guys end up at the big schools now. So really, like, I only see like 3, maybe Beef can correct me. I only see like 3 like big time college quarterbacks at this point. It's Caden Salter at Liberty. It's Joey Aguilar at App State. And it's Seth Hennigan at Memphis, who might be the best of the bunch, actually.
Yep.
But am I missing like a big group of 5 quarterback?
I'd go with 2. One we haven't seen yet. Malachi Nelson transfers from USC to Boise State. He'll be the Boise State quarterback this year, but he was Lincoln's kind of handpicked guy after Caleb Williams. I guess he got a notion that Miller Moses is going to be the guy there, and even after him, he wasn't going to have a chance. So Malachi Nelson, former 5-star transfer to Boise, and then Jordan McLeod, the quarterback last year from JMU, he's at Texas State now. Texas State has old Eagles 4th-string quarterback, I believe, G.J. Kinney, running the program there, and he's been a name for the past
legend
2 to 3 years that's on the rise. Another guy that will probably be a Power 5 coach, maybe even make the jump to the NFL within the next few years. But Jordan McLeod was awesome last year at JMU. He's a guy that I was surprised didn't at least follow the coach to Indiana or transfer up, but I think he sees what G.J. Kinney can do for him. He's a guy that should be in for a big year as well.
I'll give you guys $10 if you could tell me the Texas State mascot.
Bobcats.
Oh!
Beat
I'm
me.
telling you, man. These brains over here. Summer ball. I'm out $20. Let's go. All right. Let's talk about the American, because you brought up Memphis there, plus 220. Tulane plus 350. UTSA plus 450. South Florida 6-1. Rice. ECU 18-1, man. East Carolina can't get it going in that conference. That's sad. Slam dunk, Mark Henry Jr., over to you. Memphis taking that conference this year?
Yeah, it's a shame because I didn't look at the odds for the conferences, so I thought like, oh, Memphis, maybe that's a little bit of a hot take because the FPI loved UTSA so much. They gave them the highest chance out of any of these teams to make the playoff out of the group of 5. But yeah, I agree with the conference odds there. It makes a lot more sense. Memphis makes a lot of sense to me as a team that could make a run to the playoff. The problem is they do also have a trip to Florida State. So they automatically have kind of a loss there hanging. So it depends how they look in that game. But Florida State's not a Texas or an Oregon. Like, I'm not automatically penciling in a 59-7 loss necessarily. So maybe they hang tough and look impressive enough to not completely kill their season there. But
especially early in the season too.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Only
Week 3,
third game, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Seth Hennigan, I mean, 3 straight years for Hennigan, over 3,300 yards, over 22 touchdowns. Hasn't thrown 10 picks in any of those years. I think that he's the type of guy who I would take a shot on. I wonder what they are to make the playoff. Probably 6-1 in that
7 to
range.
1.
7-1. I don't mind that. I would probably go ahead. I'd rather bet on that than take the conference odds.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Yeah,
I have. Go for it, Beef.
I was gonna say I did a whole breakdown on Memphis, and they're a squad I'm really high on because that offense is great. They averaged 39.4 points per game last year. That was sixth in the country. And you bring the quarterback back for his, I believe it's his third, at least his third year starting at Memphis, potentially his fourth, but scored 35 or more in 9 of their 13 games. And they bring in South Carolina's leading rusher. I believe his last name is Anderson. He rushed for over 700 yards at South Carolina in the SEC last year. He transferred to Memphis for a team that struggled to kind of run the ball last year. They were so much throw. Mario Anderson, 707 yards. And they returned their two returning top receivers. So this is an offense that's going to be loaded. And Hennigan, at least going into his third year in the same system, he should be able to explode. And I'm not saying he's going to be a Heisman guy, but he's going to be up there in the conversation where, you know, you're a few weeks left in the season. You're like, wow, like look at his numbers. Memphis, just say they even do knock off Florida State. He's going to be kind of up there in the conversation. Last year, the bowl game against Iowa State was super impressive. I remember that game. So Memphis is a team I'm definitely buying stock in. I think I will put in that 7-1 ticket to make the playoffs. But I would definitely put it in before that Florida State game, whether you want to put it in preseason or after the first few games. But because if they win that game, that ticket's going to skyrocket. If they lose, I don't know if it's not impossible for them to make the playoffs, but it's going to come down to whether kind of Liberty or App State, whoever loses that game, and just see how dominant Memphis can be from there on out. But Memphis will have some more difficult tests than Liberty and App State, teams like that. So they might get the benefit of the doubt at the end of the day, especially if they hang tough in Tallahassee, lose by like a touchdown. The committee will definitely take that into consideration.
So you said Liberty's 4-1, Boise's 4-1 to make the playoffs. Memphis is 7-1. What's App State?
App State
Probably 6-7-1, probably in that Memphis range.
10-1.
10-1. Okay,
Wow.
those are probably the two shots I'd look at. I'd probably look at Memphis and App State.
Tulane's up there at 10-1 as well. But I think I heard something the other day. They got a pretty good transfer QB in there, but Pratt was kind of and the head coach is gone, so that's a lot of turnover there.
Yeah.
Memphis last year, I remember they gave Missouri a little run for their money last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And as you pointed out with that bowl game, too, as well against Iowa State.
Oh yeah, Tulane got Ty Thompson from Oregon. He was a former 5-star recruit at the quarterback spot as well. So he's probably going to be a guy that's going to look pretty dynamic in the American.
And Memphis
Go for it, Mark.
Memphis did win 6 of their last 7 last year, with their only loss coming in a 4-point loss to SMU, who's now in the ACC and a popular pick, kind of a sleeper pick to win the ACC.
So I have a survey up from The Athletic on all things Group of 5, a couple fun questions. I won't get into it's like they put it out to 900 people. Survey garnered over 900 results, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, which Group of 5 team will make the college football playoff this year? 16.3% Memphis, 13.6 Boise, 13.1 Tulane, Liberty 12.3, then JMU 8.4, and then App State 7.5. Do with that what you want. Some other fun questions here, so I'll fire it off to you guys. Let's see here. What should we call the Group of 5 in the 12-team college football era? Here's your choices. Group of 5, mid-majors, no name, non-autonomous 5. We'll stick with the Group of 5 on that one. No one wants to go at mid-majors, right?
I like the outsiders.
The outsiders.
Yeah.
Nice. And then the one I'll skip all the way up. It said, should the Group of 5 make its own playoff outside the college football playoff? 59% said no, 40% said yes. Where do you stand on that, Mark?
I think that decision might get taken out of their hands eventually if the Big Ten and SEC decide to break away, which I know Brett McMurphy, a college football writer, is a big proponent. He thinks that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, where Big Ten and SEC basically they're going to have their own coalition and leave the Big 12 and the ACC out to dry and kind of have their own playoff. And then I think at that point, the group of five is going to probably be forced to figure out what they're going to do if they're not let in. But for now, if you have a seat at the table in a 12-team playoff, I think you probably just stick with what's working.
Beef?
Yeah, I know it's only this year and next year are the two guarantee years for the group of five to make it. I'm not sure if that's because of an expansion to 16 teams.
Yeah.
But I did hear that this year and next year are the only two guarantee years that a group of five team will even make the playoffs. So if it does come to the point where it's like, yeah, we're not going to guarantee you a spot, even more of a reason for them to leave. But then you get the whole college basketball thing mixed into it.
Yes.
It's all just going to get so messy. I'm
It
not looking
is.
forward to it.
If we've learned anything here, and we're all college basketball guys, but for me at least, it's college football first and foremost. And for these schools, if we've learned anything, they will make everything else work and make everything else fit if it makes that much money for their college football team, because nothing else is even like 20% as important to these schools. We love college basketball, we love March Madness, but ultimately these schools don't really care about it compared to one college football home weekend. It's nothing.
No, you're right about that. All right. Finally, on the group of five conversation here, we won't bore people too long. Although this has been entertaining and it's definitely a crash course, and I think it's important with what we just said. Maction. Talk to me about some Maction here, Beef. Where are we at with the Mac this year?
Maction haven't looked into too much yet, just because that's going to be. I don't think we're getting a team from the MAC in the playoff necessarily. Like we were saying, Mountain West, American, Conference USA, more likely Sun Belt as well. Maction probably at the bottom there, but we'll start to hone in, focus in once it starts to get dark around 4:00 Tuesday. You're a little depressed leaving work, and you're like, wow, it's already dark, but you got Maction coming on. But they always provide some fun games. My college football magazine though does have Akron, I believe, listed as the worst team in the Power 5 this year. So they're in the MAC if you want to fade Akron. They are, I think it's 51.5 point underdogs to Ohio State in week 1. So probably going to take Ohio State. Yeah, probably take Ohio State in that one.
Well, just to let everybody know, MAC on DraftKings Sportsbook, Miami of Ohio plus 230, Toledo plus 280, Northern Illinois 7-1, Bowling Green 7-1, and then Western Michigan after that. Mark Henry Jr., any final thoughts on the MAC there, sir?
No free ads, but mostly sports. The Brandon Walker, Mark Titus pod from Barstool. They're having all the Barstool guys. They joined a college football 25 conference with the MAC. They picked names out of a hat. So they're live streaming their games every day, playing through an online dynasty in the MAC. So it's a
awesome.
fun idea from mostly sports guys. So I'm going to learn about the MAC because I've been watching these streams.
That's funny. Yeah. And Akron is 70-1 to win that conference. So good luck to the Zips, right? The Akron Zips.
Good job, Brace.
All right. Let's keep it moving. Let's talk some college football, big picture stuff. And I can't wait to get into this conversation with you guys because Kirby Smart had something to say. And, look, he's got a lot going on with this program, trying to keep his players drive under 55, under the speed limit, but was discussing the NIL. And no one's going to cry for Georgia. But he did open my eyes by saying, man, it feels like, of course, Dan Lanning, he's got the connection there, head coach of Oregon. Essentially, they're getting blank checks from Phil Knight in Oregon. And I'm just wondering, is there a chance that we see Oregon take that next step and possibly turn into an light Alabama, a Georgia run that we've seen? Is it possible that we could start to see, look, Oregon impressed me last year. They came up short. I get it. But man, it feels like if they can go ahead and pony up and spend that money, and of course, Nike and all the attraction for young guys. I love Nike. I'm curious, is there a chance Oregon might be able to take a step up and be up there with some of the great teams in college football, specifically from the SEC? Beef, I'll come to you on this one first.
Yeah, I think it all starts with Lanning. He's only 38 years old, so if he wants, he's got another at least 30 years, of coaching college football there. And I'm pretty sure Alabama wanted him. I think that was Alabama's guy originally before they went to DeBoer. And when Dan Lanning says no to Alabama, where he already had coached before, he knows kind of what goes on there. He knows, or he's at least hearing in the back of his head, like, hey, like, we have everything you need. He said that multiple times at the press conferences, through the media. We have everything you need, and basically they're like, we'll flush you with all the money that you want. Like I saw the one quote. It was like, Phil Knight wants to win a championship so bad before he dies, he will give everything just for Oregon to be there, have a seat at the table. So he does have, I think, a little bit of coaching adjustments to do. DeBoer kind of outcoached him there in the regular season, as well as the conference title game. They were favorites, I believe, going into that conference title game.
Yep.
Bo Nix was the Heisman favorite going into that title game, and Washington controlled that game for pretty much from start to finish. So still a young coach, has some growing up to do, but the foundation's definitely there. The money's there. Like you're saying, Brace, Nike's there. Like a lot of appeal. The only kind of thing is it's out in Eugene, Oregon, but at the same time, what's Tuscaloosa, Alabama? Not exactly the nightlife capital of the world. So going to the Big Ten definitely helps too. This year, I think we get the birth of a new college football rivalry between them and Ohio State. I think those two going head to head each year will be really great for the sport as well.
Yeah, Mark, over to you right now. DraftKings Sportsbook, of course, Ohio State, which I just read an article, $20 million in NIL this year. Plus 200 to win the Big Ten for Oregon, the Ducks. Ohio State plus 155, and then the drop off at third is Penn State 5-1. So obviously, odds makers are looking at Oregon as a legitimate championship contender for that conference. I want to take it a step further. Like, I know you should crawl before you sprint or walk or run here, whatever. But your thoughts, like if they're able to write those checks every single year now in the NIL period. Where do we stand with the Ducks? Is there a chance that they can build something immaculate over the next few seasons?
No doubt about it. There's no doubt that Oregon should be kind of looked at as one of these top mainstay. I don't know about blue blood, but like they're Texas, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, like they're on that level now. And I think going into this year specifically, it's very clear that the top four teams in terms of talent, no matter how you slice it, is Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon. You could argue on the order, but those are the four top teams. And then you have like another tier of the Ole Misses and Penn States and Missouris and Michigans, and you have all those other teams. But those are the top four teams. And you asked if Oregon's ready to take that leap. I don't know if if they will take the leap. I don't know if they go and win the Big Ten, or they go and I know they play Ohio State in Eugene this year. That's a huge game for both schools. I don't know if you're able to win that game. I can't tell you whether or not they'll take the step, but what I'll tell you is past years, they've let coaches go elsewhere. Mario Cristobal, they let him go to Miami. Willie Taggart, back in the day, they let him go. Chip Kelly, they let him go to the NFL. All these other guys, when it came down to it, when they got big offers elsewhere, they didn't pony up. They decided, we're Oregon, we're not Alabama, we're not Ohio State. This time it came around. I think Beef's right. I think Dan Lanning was Bama's guy, even though Kalen DeBoer has beat him 3 times in the last 2 years. I'd argue Bama maybe hired the better coach personally, I think. But Dan Lanning is a great coach. And Oregon this time decided to pony up, and they said, you know what? We're one of these top schools. We're not in the business of getting our coach poached anymore by the top schools because we are a top school. So there you go. That's what I think more than anything that happens on the field this year, more than anything that if they win a title, if they win the Big Ten, I think that shows the commitment to that more than anything.
Well said. No, you're right about that, especially going back in history with all those coaches. And now, look, the writing's on the wall. You're in the Big Ten, you're with the big dogs, and with the 12-team playoff, anything can happen. But I think they are a legitimate shot to win this conference this year. It's going to be tough though, because there are some good teams, of course, and then right at the top is Ohio State. All right, you brought up Alabama. On to the next question here, big topic. It feels like Nick Saban, we talked about SEC media days. Like, man, he was the focal point. He was front and center. Now, I wasn't there. I have no idea. Like, was DeBoer like hiding? Does he want the limelight? But I don't know. Where do we stand on Alabama for this upcoming season? Are they in a world of trouble? Is this a transition year? Are we going to, take it easy on them because you're going from the god Nick Saban to a new coach? Beef, where do you stand with Alabama this year, man?
I personally, right before this, I did on my show top 10 quarterbacks in college football heading into the year. Jalen Milroe, I listed him as my number one guy. I'm very excited and very bullish on him because of the growth I saw from him over the second half of the season. He's got a full year now under his belt. His running ability, I think he's going to be awesome. I probably won't put in a Heisman ticket for him just because I think there's some guys with some better potential value. But I think he's awesome, and we can say whatever we want about Nick Saban, probably the best college football coach of all time. But his pedigree's always been on the defensive end. He's relied so much on different offensive guys over the past few years, whether it was Lane Kiffin, Bill O'Brien. I think we can argue Kalen DeBoer is a better offensive coach than any of those guys. So you bring in Kalen DeBoer, I think he's going to get more out of Milroe potentially. I'm intrigued to see if they let him throw the ball as much as kind of Penix did over the past few years. But I'm very bullish on this Alabama team. I already took them over 9.5 wins to that was at plus money too. I think it was at plus 115. But you look at their schedule, some of the toughest games they get at home, like they get Virginia at home. They get Missouri at home, or Virginia. I don't know why I said Virginia. I meant Georgia. Sorry, Georgia at home. That's a big difference there. Vanderbilt was right under. I got the V. I got the V in there. But Georgia at home. You got Missouri at home. You get Auburn at home, who I think is going to be like a 7-5, 8-4. Got to go to Oklahoma. Not too bullish on them. And then at Tennessee is going to be a tough one, and at LSU. But I think LSU isn't going to be that great either this year. They lost so much from that offensive team, and the defense was very bad last year, and they didn't really make that many changes. So I'm not going to bet against Alabama. A lot of the guys stayed. I think that was one of the big things. They didn't really have a mass exodus. And I have a lot of faith in Milroe. So I like this team. I took them over 9.5 wins already. They're sitting there at 8-1, I think, to win the SEC. Probably not going to take that, but I do expect to see this team back in the college football playoff this year.
Milroe 15-1 on the Heisman Trophy odds on DraftKings Sportsbook. Only three guys, I believe. Only three quarterbacks. No, excuse me. All quarterbacks in front of him. 5. Howard at Ohio State, Dart, Ole Miss, Texas, Ewers, Beck at Georgia, and Gabriel front and center. Top dog. Speaking of Oregon, good grief, plus 750. Your preseason favorite for the Heisman Trophy on DraftKings Sportsbook. Mark Henry Jr., your thoughts on the Tide this year? Alabama, where do you stand? Where do they stand with you?
I think they might be one of the hardest teams to predict in the sport going into this year. Based on I picked every game for every team. I think Georgia is going 12-0. So I think Georgia is going to win that game in Alabama. Personally,
they got a tough schedule. You got them going perfect.
They got a tough roster. Yeah, and Beef said he thinks Jalen Milroe is the number one QB. For me, it's Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck's the best quarterback in the country going into the year. And
do you think best prospect or best college quarterback?
I think best player. Both. I think best player. And my thing with Milroe also is, and I'm as high on Kalen DeBoer as anybody, but we saw Jalen Milroe really struggle at the beginning of last year before Tommy Rees, the offensive play caller there, really adjusted and made some changes and really moved to running him around and going deep, not having him throw short and intermediate. Whereas DeBoer had Penix do that a ton, throwing the short and the intermediate. I think DeBoer is going to be able to adjust and kind of change his system to the talent around him instead of making a square peg fit in a round circle. But I do think that there's something to be said for the fact that Beck is in the same system, whereas Milroe had to learn a new system as well. But I had Milroe 6th when I put out my top 10 QB list. Part of it is just there's a lot of questions with him throwing the ball at the when it comes down to it at the end of games. But obviously, heck of an athlete. And Bama. So I had them losing to Georgia. I think I agree with Beef. I think they'll take care of LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. To me, their season comes down to a 2-week stretch in the middle of the season. They go at Tennessee, and then they're home for Mizzou. Those are really, really tough games. I think they have to split them. If you split those games, you go 10-2 in the SEC, you're probably in. If you lose both those games, you go 9-3, you're probably out.
Interesting. Yeah, I would just say that looking at what we were discussing, getting ready for this podcast and looking at some of the big dogs there, I came away with one article that was writing up a couple different takes for some other teams out there, the ifs, and man, the schedule right front and center for Georgia. So look, if they do it this year, not to say that they haven't earned it in years past, but good grief, after it's all said and done this year, if they're standing undefeated, woo, that's a hell of a year for Kirby Smart, even with everything happening in the offseason right now.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. Now that I'm looking at it, I guess the one thing I'd push back, I'm not high on Clemson. So I think a lot of people look at that Clemson game to start the year and they're like, wow, tough game for Georgia to start the year.
13-point favorites.
Yeah, I think
and it's in Atlanta, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it's basically a home game. I think they take care of business. It is, their season comes down to at Bama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, and home for Tennessee. So it is 3 tough road games. I'll give you that for sure. I mean, the odds will tell you they'll lose one of those for sure. I'm just, when I'm picking each game, I don't think any of those teams are as good as Georgia. And it's also one of those things where if I pick Texas to beat Georgia, that probably means I have Texas going 12-0 against the tough schedule. So no matter what, like you kind of have to pick someone to go on a run, it seems like, in the SEC.
All right. Yeah, Nick Saban seems to be doing some media, a little bit more media these days.
Well, he's on game day, right?
Yep. Is he on game day? Well, yeah, I got something coming up. We'll hit that with the rapid fire at the end here from game day. But that's cool. Look, Nick Saban, there's one thing I love hearing coming out of Nick Saban's mouth. It's the word program. Program. he like how Canadians say organization. The program is not the program. It's program. We got to run a program. It was great because he got all fired up. And I think it was kind of a little tongue in cheek. At the same time, he was taking a shot at the egos in the conference. But that soundbite about Texas, and if you didn't hear it, he said something along the lines of like, "Hey, I don't know why all of a sudden Texas think they're coming to the SEC and running things," and he kind of took a shot at everybody, going, "They ain't running things. There's a lot of egos in this conference." So, just some great television, and of course, Nick Saban, good. Bill Belichick might be good. I don't know. We'll see how he plays out. I know he's doing inside the NFL on the CW. Of all places, CW turning into ESPN2 out of nowhere. Tom Brenneman back on the call.
There's a deep drive.
It's exactly. Are we going to be watching Wake Forest on the CW? Are we tuning in? Is that what?
Wake
what's
Forest, Georgia Tech?
Yeah.
I think they got a lot of ACC games, right?
Okay. All right. Whatever. Well, hey, look, more football, the better. All right, boys. A great conversation on all things Group of 5, getting everybody caught up. Once again, 31 days from the opener, Georgia Tech, Florida State in Ireland. Looking forward to that one. Beef on top of the covers with the countdown. And without further ado, let's go ahead and wrap things up here with a nice little rapid fire. Both of you guys can answer. I will start with Beef. You can go ahead and take the first one first. Name the best football player in college football right now.
I'll go Travis Hunter just because of the two-way ability. I think it's kind of hard to go against him, especially when there's not like, I think going into last year you had like, all right, Caleb Williams like is the guy. You know he's the stud, the returning Heisman at quarterback, all that good stuff. I think this year I'll give it to a guy that could be a top 10 pick at either receiver or corner.
Is it worth the flyer on him as far as Heisman is concerned? 60-1?
Nah, because be good enough. Like even if they win like 6 games, I don't see them fine. And because I also don't think the longevity. That was my thing last year. Like they're like, all right, this looks great the first 3 games, and then he gets banged up. They got to start limited snaps. It's not suitable to play a guy 120 snaps a game both ways.
By the way, I'll just throw something out because I think there's 2 corners better than Travis Hunter, but Travis Hunter plays offense too. So it's like one of those conversations. But Will Johnson from Michigan, 6'2" corner, he's probably the best, maybe the best NFL draft prospect of the 3 because he's bigger, he's longer. I think he's just going to be a lockdown guy in the NFL week 1 next year. And then, toot my horn, the best player at Notre Dame is Benjamin Morrison, corner, a little bit smaller, 6-foot corner, like 190 pounds, but he's locked down. He is an absolute beast out there at corner. So bunch of corners expected right now to go top 10 next year, which is pretty rare. So really, really rich at the corner position this year.
All right, stay on the microphone, Mark Henry Jr. Best player in college football right now is who?
My first thought was Will Johnson. That was the first guy who came to my mind. Travis Hunter's absolutely in the conversation. Someone who isn't the best player in college football right now, but I think could be, is Harold Perkins. He's shown flashes in certain games at LSU of just being an absolute game wrecker. Had kind of a little bit of a weird year last year, but LSU's defense was bad in general around him. So supposedly going to be a little bit better this year with some transfers. So Harold Perkins, a guy to watch out for. He could kind of break out as that top guy. But there's also Luther Burden, receiver at Missouri. He's probably in the conversation as well.
Interesting. All right, Beef, over to you. You brought up, let's see here. I got that. You brought up Travis Hunter. So who's going to have a better NFL career, Shador Sanders or Travis Hunter?
I'll go Shador because what I mean, we don't know what Travis is going to be. Is he going to be a corner? Is he going to be a receiver? So. Like, I was listening to something the other day, and they said they think he'll be a corner because that's more of a suitable position to play full time, and then it could be like, all right, we'll throw him in on offense as well. But I truly think if you put Shador Sanders behind like the LSU offensive line or the Oklahoma State offensive line, he would be without a doubt the best quarterback. That game against TCU last year, week 1, was some of the most eye-popping quarterback play I've ever seen from a dude in college. So I'll go Shador Sanders, but that also comes with some baggage with his father and all, where he winds up, where he kind of dictates. But I'll go Shador Sanders just for on-field purposes.
Mark Henry Jr., better NFL career.
I'll go Hunter. I just think the hit rate on quarterback in the NFL is so hard. We see these guys who we think are going to be so good, and even they bust out. But yeah, I feel like the hit rate at corner is so much higher. I'll go Hunter.
All right, better SEC season, Tennessee or LSU, Mark Henry Jr.?
I think I have them both at 9-3, but I think the upside is higher with Tennessee, with Nico at QB. I think, not to be a hater, I actually think I'd go with Heupel over Kelly at this point. I think Heupel's I think he's an offensive mastermind. I think that guy's one of the best play callers in the sport. I would always lean towards that when it comes to hiring. Brian Kelly, great coach, great CEO type guy, and obviously good offensive coach as well. I just think Heupel gives them an upside that maybe LSU doesn't have. We saw LSU's offense go nuts last year, and they weren't able to keep the train on the tracks elsewhere on the team. So I'm going with Tennessee.
Beef kind of alluded to that earlier. Your thoughts? Tennessee or LSU better season? And you're going to Tennessee this year for a game.
There you go.
So that's good. I'm looking forward to that a lot. But I'm actually going to go with LSU here. I saw something in my magazine when I was on the beach that stuck out to me. Brian Kelly's won 10 or more games in 7 consecutive seasons. That's the longest streak of any coach in the country. So say what you want about the guy, but all he does is win. Even last year it was 10-3 with the bowl game. But the defense can't be much worse, and I think from what we've seen from LSU's kind of pipeline of offensive talent, they're going to have new guys step up this year. And it might be a little bit of a biased take, but an LSU reporter said at SEC Media Days this is the best offensive line he's seen in his career covering college football. So when you have that, it's going to be hard to be bad. I think I had LSU going 10-2. So I'm going to go with them. I think Tennessee is more of like a 9-3 to like an 8-4, depending on how Nico develops. That's a lot of pressure on a guy starting his first full year in the SEC.
I will rebut the Brian Kelly thing. He has lost multiple games in every year but one of those. So he gets the 10 wins, but it's usually like 10-4, 10-3.
Still, longest active streak.
Yeah. No, he's really good. He's really good at going 10-2, or and then losing a big game.
It's like James Franklin.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
Beef, staying with you. Will we see Arch Manning this year and not a mop-up duty?
Yeah, because Quinn Ewers has missed, I think, at least 2 games in both years that he started at Texas. And I was talking to someone about that earlier. Just say he does go down week 4 or something. He's forced to miss a couple weeks. Arch goes out there, he beats Alabama or he beats Georgia in that Georgia game, something like that. You're not turning back to him. At that point, you're going to compete for the title. So he's missed time in 2 straight years. I think that's why Arch was comfortable kind of still sitting there, because last year was a redshirt year. So, yeah, I do say that we see Arch. Whether he takes over the starting job, probably not, unless it's a major injury. But, yes, I'll go with he gets some playing time this year.
All right. And Mark Henry Jr., will we see Arch this year?
Yeah, that's a good point by Beef. Quinn hasn't been able to stay healthy. Outside of that, I don't think Quinn gets benched. So if he comes in, I think it'll be via injury. There hasn't been a lot of like rave reviews about Arch, I feel like, from the spring game in practice. I feel like if there was, we'd be hearing a ton about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Beef can correct me.
I think he actually snapped in the spring game. I think he went for a little over 300 and like 4 touchdowns.
I just feel like there's absolutely no buzz. I was listening to a podcast and they were like, I forget who it was. I think it was someone with Cowherd, actually.
Well, they just had a great season. I know it's on to the next, and it is Arch Manning, but they just had a phenomenal season. And isn't yours predicted to be like
Well, that's what I mean.
Yours is the third best Heisman odds, 10-1.
That's what I mean. I forget who it was. It was someone on with Cowherd, I think, and Cowherd asked, like, what's the vibe around Texas? Is Arch Manning like the big man on campus? Is everyone waiting for him to play? And everyone's like, it's actually shocking when you go to Texas camp how little talk there is even about Arch Manning, because it's just everything is about Quinn Ewers, and he's the guy.
I mean, they put Quinn on the video game cover. I mean, take with that what you will, but I mean, I don't think they're going to put a guy that they're not expecting.
Something.
Yeah, but Arch went for 19 for 25 for 355 and 3 touchdowns in the spring game.
Okay, nice.
I'm with Mark though on the point that, like, man, we're not hearing a lot about him, and then especially with that spring game, you think that would be replayed, that would be over there, that would be out there, but who knows? Maybe because of the connection that Peyton now has with his film crew with ESPN, they're probably like taking it easy on his blood. Who knows? All right, final question. College football season right around the corner. Mark Henry Jr., you can go first. Who's your favorite college football follow?
Favorite college football follow? That's a great question.
Give us one that you know what, you look forward to his take on a big game or previewing a big game or funny, whatever.
I feel like I've always got to shout out my guy, Brandon Walker, but I feel like that's obvious. I've already shouted him out on the show. So I'll go Bud Elliott. Bud Elliott's a good one. What's their pod? Is it the Cover 3?
Cover 3
pod? Yeah, I listen pretty regularly. Bud Elliott's probably my favorite guy from that show. I definitely hate listening to Danny Cannell. He stinks, but Bud Elliott's the man.
Poor Danny. Him and his turtlenecks.
Who is it? Fornelli on that show?
Tom Fornelli.
Oh yeah.
He's good too. Yeah.
Ryan Beef Coyle, your favorite follow, college football.
I didn't start listening to this guy until college basketball season, and I was glad to see him go into college football as well. But I'll go Aaron Torres over at Fox, as well as he has his own Aaron Torres Sports Media. I think he does shows 2-3 times a week. So I've been tuning into those. They're pretty awesome, in depth for kind of the nerds like us. So definitely give him a follow.
Yeah, Aaron's the man. Good people. Matter of fact, tweeted me last night. One of his followers was asking about a cheesesteak place. The question was, which threw me off, was I need to get a cheesesteak at night. Because there was something along the lines of like one night in Philly I'm looking
Subway,
at
right? Did you tell him Subway?
The Citizens Bank Park visiting locker room. No, so it was like 8:55. So I Googled two spots off the jump. Both of them were closed, and I'm like, dude, that's a tough question. Of course, you got Jim's. D'Alessandro's is open a little bit later. But yeah, man. And then of course he said he was here the next day, and I'm like, dude, just go to Angelo's. Just the hype is real. Bring cash. Order up. Steve's? Yeah, I agree. Guy. Where is Steve's though? Because I Googled it, and I used to go to the one downtown, and it's no longer there.
I go to the one on
the Northeast.
Yeah, the Boulevard. Yeah.
All right, boys, excellent stuff. We've been squeezed in some cheesesteak talk there. Nice work across the board. Group of 5, some rapid fire questions, some Heisman Trophy plays, some week 0 plays, and can't wait, man. We're right around the corner. Can't thank you enough. Once again, Mark Henry Jr. Hear him every Saturday. Tough Cover Radio Show from 11 to 1. And Ryan Beef Coyle Beef. We're ready to go, baby. Beef up front. It's coming. Let's do it. As always, if you missed anything, please get all of our podcasts at foxphlgambler.com and tell a friend. Nobody covers college football like the Gambler Gang.